Penn State football gets on the board for the offensive line in the class of 2027. I'm Thomas Ryan Carr. Ryan Snyder with me here to discuss the latest commitment to Penn State football. Just going to say this off the bat because I always forget there's going to be a lot of these here in the next coming days, weeks, and months because they've got to get a lot of guys on board. So like the video to help us out and then subscribe here to the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel so you don't miss any of these when they drop because there is no pattern. There is no schedule. It is when these guys make the decision, and when it comes out, we are here to tell you about it. And so you need to make sure you subscribe and enable notifications so you know when all that happens. So Ryan, who are we talking about today for Penn State football?
Owen Reilly, first offensive lineman to join this new staff. 6'4", 290 is what we have, man. He's probably a little under that, probably a little closer to 6'3 and a half, 6'3 quarter. Either way, we're splitting hairs with that one. From Bel Air, Maryland, Bel Air High School, of course. 3-star prospect by Rivals and 24/7. So has him in the industry there, as you see it, number 6'10". An interesting, not an interesting recruitment, a quick recruitment. Basically, I mean, so Reilly camped at Penn State under the previous staff 2 years ago, then came back for the Nevada game this past year. Previous staff had interest. And what's funny to me about this one is, you know, he explained previously, like, didn't really follow Penn State much or anything like that growing up. And then Penn State was the first kind of major program to contact him in some way or another, right? Just kind of whether it's letters or whatever it may be. And it really sparked his interest in Penn State. And so he starts researching it. He starts watching them more, you know, over the course of his freshman year and sophomore year. And, you know, of course, then he visits. Or he camped, like I said, and then he visited for the Nevada game. Yeah, never got an offer from the previous staff, which doesn't surprise you, right? His junior year is really kind of where he made his mark, I guess you would say. Yeah, maybe a couple before that, but that's where he really kind of took off. But what's funny to me is just the previous staff's interest and communication with him early to some level now benefits Matt Campbell and his staff to some degree. And I'm not saying he wouldn't have ended up here if that never happened, but it really kind of got the wheels turning of his interest in Penn State. And, he's been open now about how he watches them all the time now and all those different kind of things. So found that to be pretty interesting. Ryan Clanton offered him in January during an in-school visit. So we knew then that Penn State was probably going to be in a good spot, but really in the last 10 days is when it kind of became clear that this was probably something was coming here. So Reilly was originally supposed to visit Penn State April 25th. For the blue-white game. And then he had Pitt for April 11th, Rutgers for April 14th. Canceled both. Comes to Penn State on April 16th, right? So whenever you see those kind of things.
It's a pretty good sign.
Add in the fact that, there had been one or two, sources, I guess you'd say, that, hinted he's a name that, we need to be watching closely. 1 + 1 + 1, you get my point there. So solid pickup, going to be an interior lineman. I'll be curious to see if he can snap at some point. I talked to his coach briefly, and he said a lot of schools have asked about his ability to snap. They don't use him that way that much. They use him primarily at left tackle. And coach basically said that's we gotta have our best guy at left tackle, right? A lot of high schools would be that way, but they will bump him inside. T. Frank, I think you saw that on film a little bit.
He played both guard positions and left tackle. In the film that I watched, and was the most dominant player on the offense and on the field, like without a doubt.
So I did clarify then too, like, has Penn State brought up center or anything like that? And, was told it's been primarily guard, and that's kind of what I expect there. So that's where we'll slot him in for now as potential. I do want to mention he's a pretty good wrestler. Last year finished 6th in Maryland, won his district as well. This year, number 2 seed. But he was upset in the quarterfinals, went sudden victory, then went to tiebreakers. And, unfortunately, I don't think he was able to hold on long enough. So he got knocked out in the quarterfinals this year, but, still a quality wrestler. And, from that perspective, what you need to know is leverage, right? Use of hands, all those kind of things. I've talked to a lot of coaches over the year that love themselves some offensive linemen who wrestle, right? So I think.
When applied properly, I like it a lot too.
Go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
No, that's I was curious. I just wanted you to finish that thought. I just wanted to chirp in with, like, sometimes it works out, and sometimes if you're out there just leaning on the guy and you're not aggressive and you're not strong, like violently strong, like Owen Reilly is, then maybe you're leaning into some bad tendencies of literally like your body weight and everything being over your toes, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And anything else before we get into the kind of the film recap of him that you thought was
I
interesting?
mean, that's pretty
in his
much it. I
recruitment?
mean, he had some quality offers, right? Oregon, Michigan State. There were a couple others that offered. Visited Maryland, Vatek, a lot of other regional schools. But West Virginia also had an OV set with him at one point, for June. Obviously, I don't expect that to happen anymore. He was actually going to go to West Virginia, I believe, this weekend for its spring game as well, but no longer expect that to happen. So good spot for Penn State to be in, I believe. And they'll take him. I mean, he's really been pretty high on their board because he's
a quality player. Yeah.
When I asked around about him, and his name consistently came up as like, not only is a guy that we think could commit here, but like pretty high on Clanton's board.
Yeah, you mentioned he's primarily a guard. Speaking to Ryan Clanton this offseason, he explained what he likes out of guards. I'll talk about that in just 1 second, but first we have to get this from our sponsor. In football and in finance, having a strong game plan makes all the difference. AJ Freedom Financial helps individuals build personalized financial strategies that align with their goals, timelines, and risk tolerance. From investment guidance and retirement planning to 401k rollovers, HSA assistance, and legacy and wealth strategies, AJ Freedom Financial offers thoughtful, one-on-one support backed by industry experience and a commitment to transparency. Whether you're starting to invest, planning for retirement, or you simply want a second look at your financial approach, AJ Freedom Financial is here to help you make informed, confident decisions. Schedule a no-obligation consultation today at www.ajffi.com. Call 866-383-6899 or email info@ajffi.com. Again, that's ajffi.com. Call 866-383-6899 or email info@ajffi.com. AJ Freedom Financial, helping Nittany Lions fans plan for what's next. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Gradient Securities, LLC. Arden Hills, Minnesota, 866-991-1539. Member FINRA, SIPC. Gradient Securities, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor, offers investment advisory services under the DBA of Gradient Wealth Management. Gradient Securities, LLC, and its advisors do not render tax, legal, or accounting services. Insurance products and services offered through AJ Freedom Financial. AJ Freedom Financial and Freedom Financial Insurance, LLC, are not affiliated with Gradient Securities, LLC. So let's talk about what Penn State offense and offensive line coach Ryan Clanton likes in his guards. And he said, obviously jokingly, you want it to be guys that, go to Perkins and sit in the parking lot and smoke a cigarette and drink a Mountain Dew and run through your face. It's just a different breed. And when you look at what Owen Reilly is, he is violent, angry, strong, explosive. And you mentioned the wrestling part of it. He is a powerful 290. He's not a sloppy 290. So this is a guy, whether he's 285, whatever he is a ball of muscle. He's incredibly strong, and he's got right guard written all over him. Sal Wormley, any of those guys. I think he's a little, I shouldn't say Sal Wormley because I think he's more explosive and athletic than Sal Wormley. So this is a guy who has reached the second level, block defenders on that level sort of abilities. He can pull, he can run really well, and he's already 290 pounds, so he moves at a high clip. And you can see, schools that like those type of players, you mentioned Oregon, I don't think it's crazy to think that this 3-star is a guy that a lot of schools would like. So Owen Reilly is absolutely a quality prospect and absolutely a guy that I think can be a plus starter at Penn State and has significant upside. Now, some of the things that I'm curious about is he's so thick that his arms look a little stumpy. He does not look like a guy that lacks, like I'm alarmed by his length, but I do think he's firmly an interior player. And one of the reasons Ryan's bringing up is he a center is because, the closer you get to the ball and you can't get closer than touching the football, that's a place where, you can have a little bit less length. Now, you'd still like to have a 33-inch armed center like Juice Scruggs. That'd be great. This is a guy that is going to be powerful, explosive, and he can fit into a number of schemes. So he is the thing that's really great about him is I don't think he has a lot of technique right now when it comes to zone concepts, but you can see the skills that would fit there. And he's absolutely a shit kicker. He's a guy that wants to get into it in duo blocking, in man, combo blocks, things like that. So he can fit into the multiplicity sort of schemes, and you can run just about anything with him. Now this is a small school, right? He's kind of in a rural Maryland, Ryan. This doesn't look like the highest level of competition, even if the bodies look like they're reasonably sized on the offensive defensive line of scrimmage. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair. And T Frank, I apologize, buddy, because you asked me for this earlier, and while we were both, you and I were doing something else a little bit ago, I did get an arm measurement on him, 76.6 wingspan. So that's not too bad for a 6'4" guy. I mean, what is 76.6? Isn't that like basically exactly what? Isn't that like 6'4"? 76 inches? I believe it's 6'4". Yeah,
I'm doing the math right now. So,
yeah, 72,
that
6 feet.
is,
So yeah,
yeah,
6'4". So I mean, that's about
6'3". 76. That's 6'3" and a third. So about 6'3" and
6'4" to third. But yeah, it's okay. My point is that it's actually it's not bad. That's not bad. So I apologize. I meant to send that to you, and I did not. So my fault on that, buddy. But it's not crazy long, but
No.
His arms aren't terrible though. For his size, remember we have him at basically 6'3.5", height wise.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing good length, but when you see a guy that is so, physically developed and doesn't have the elite reach, that is a question that you have. But either way, some of the things that I do think he needs to improve on, gets a little high when he starts attacking. So, kind of comes up and around instead of, through, when it comes to keeping his elbows tight, gets his elbows wide a little bit. These are little detail things that any position coach is going to teach you. And then one thing, and I don't know if it was just one game, their offense looked like it had a lot of issues. So like they struggled to play with consistency and play clean, but he was habitually laid off the snap. And I don't know if that was the quarterback. I don't know if that was the offense. I don't know if that was him. It's just an observation I had. And then sometimes, like, I love how athletic he is, but he does sometimes play a little bit out of control. He starts running instead of, playing with good base. Gets a little, not even high. He's just running to the spot, running to attack. And then when somebody makes a move, because football is not a linear sport where things are going to line up directly, he tends to whiff when guys can like counter his athleticism. These are all correctable things just to make sure he's playing with a consistent base, playing with consistent pad level and consistency overall. But I think this is a high quality prospect for Penn State to put on the board, and a guy that is going to be, I keep saying this, Ryan, this is the thing of they like their evaluations. They're going to go after guys they think can play, and they don't care what the recruiting rankings say. So I'm going to say this again, kind of like Blake Benton, we said he's a 3-star. I think he can be a 4-star. I think Owen Reilly is a better player than his recruiting ranking would say he is. And so you might be tired of hearing me say that. You might want to see them getting some more of those 4 stars that are 4 stars. I don't know, but I think that this is a really good football player and somebody that's going to help Penn State down the road once he shores up all the things that he needs to shore up, which is just basically grow up as an offensive lineman. So I think this is a really good pickup and somebody that I enjoyed watching him play football.
So why we keep coming back to rankings at the end, guys. Pay attention. Again, past July, we have camp season coming up. Let's see if Owen makes it out to Under Armour. We just had the the opening and the Elite 11 up in New Jersey this past weekend. Another Under Armour camp in New Jersey coming up, and those are all great opportunities for a guy like Owen to get his name out there, or show how athletic he really is. Moving forward here. So let's see what happens, but. Point being is, trust the evaluation for the staff, right? That's why you're paying Matt Campbell and those guys what you're paying them. And, it worked out pretty well for them at Iowa State. They're on a different level now, don't get me wrong. But listen, I love wrestler offensive linemen. That's a man crush of mine. I always like those guys, know how to use leverage, know how to use their hands. Like you said, it's got to pan out, right? Don't get any bad tendencies with that. But I think it's a quality pickup. And by the way, a kid who fits everything that I think Penn State fans would expect from their players. A great kid off the field. By the way, he was a leader. He was on their leadership council as a sophomore, which is pretty impressive. I do not see that very often in high schools. I always make sure to ask coaches about, captain, all those kind of things. And I've seen junior. Of course, I'd see a ton of seniors, right? But to be part of that leadership committee for his team as a sophomore, I think is notable and something that should be respected. And yeah, proud of him. That's awesome, man. Good for him.
More on Owen Reilly over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Like the video, subscribe here to the YouTube channel, and check out, you're going to see it here if you're watching on the YouTube channel, 50% off during our spring sale. So make sure you check us out at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com as well. For Ryan Snyder, I'm Ryan Carr. We'll be back next time this happens, when they get another commitment, which is feels like they're ramping up to another run. Make sure you check out recruiting information over on the site as well. We'll talk.